I always imagined the internet as a doorway. Some nights it opened onto light, songs that knew my mood before I did, dumb jokes from kind people, recipes for futures I might want to cook. Other nights it opened onto a hallway with too many doors and not enough labels. On a Thursday that felt ordinary enough to be trusted, I picked one. Behind it was a guy named Ryan. His profile felt imperfect in a good way. One photo slightly out of focus, a bio with no quotes from Nietzsche or The Office, a line that said, "I overwater plants and underthink snacks. Tell me your best late night order." We matched in minutes, and he didn't sprint for a real-life meet. He said, "Coffee first? Public place. Your pick. I'll be the guy pretending to read the menu." It sounded like a joke with its hands visible. I told Olivia, my roommate, the plan. We have roles when we date strangers. Share the time and place, drop live location, agree on a safe word that sounds normal in a sentence. That week, it was vermouth. We treat safety like flossing. Easy to skip, easier to regret. The cafe on Grand Ave is the kind of place that forgets to have shadows. He was there early, skimming the menu with a finger like a kid tracing constellations. In person, Ryan looked less curated, more true. An uneven smile, a gentle nervousness that didn't feel like a performance. He asked questions the way some people keep doorways open. We talked about nothing that mattered. Trash cans, cats, the morality of eating fries not meant for you, and somehow it mattered anyway. "Want to walk?" he asked when the cups went empty. Outside, the rain was taking a slow victory lap around the block. "There's a pop-up gallery 2 streets over. Light, loud, lots of people. 15 minutes tops." He said the word safe like he was returning something he'd borrowed. I texted Liv. "Walking to a gallery down Maple, back by 10:30. She sent the little eye emoji and vermouth. I typed it back the way you say "I love you" without waking the house. We turned by the park. The lights thinned out like hair. Somewhere my phone downgraded from 4 bars to 1 and then nothing. I lifted it like a torch that had forgotten fire. Ryan glanced back, phone in his hand. Dead spot. City hates its own alleys. The gallery wasn't where it was supposed to be. A corrugated gate, 2 fresh tags in silver paint, a smell that knew about metal. "Wait, let me check," he said, pulling up an event page that looked convincing enough to fool someone who wanted to be fooled. "I think it's through the loading lane into a courtyard. I swear I've been." We turned into a narrow passage where a single bulb practiced failure. "You can see the courtyard from here," he said, pushing on a metal door stamped "Loading Bay." It groaned and went dark beyond. "1 second," he added, and slipped inside like a person testing a pool with a toe. My body wrote me a memo. "Step back." I listened. I texted vermouth to Liv with a shaking thumb and hit send right as a hand I didn't recognize closed against my elbow with professional gentleness. A second hand, warmer, smaller, pressed over my mouth with a calm that screamed. "Quiet," said a voice, not Ryan's. Older. No accent, the kind of voice you rent to narrate documentaries about bridges. The smell was detergent and wet cardboard. They moved me down a short flight, across a corridor that forgot how to be a hallway, into a room that wanted to be a question mark. The light was the wrong color, a dingy imitation of day. The room was wrong too, tidy in a way that didn't come from pride. 1 folding cot, a chair that made more sound than sense, a high window that knew about weather but wasn't on speaking terms. No bars, no chains, just a door with nothing to hold on to from the inside and a lock that reported only to itself. My phone lived in my pocket, loyal and useless. I pressed the side button. Nothing. The battery wasn't dead. The world was. There's a kind of silence that isn't an absence of noise so much as a presence of attention. It filled the corners like smoke. The door unlatched with a confident click. A man entered. Not Ryan. Mid-40s maybe, hair cut to a compromise, hands oddly clean. He set a sealed water bottle on the chair. Drink. He said in a tone people use when the conversation is going to happen with or without you. He left before my fear could pick an outfit. When stress hits a ceiling, your brain either shatters or organizes. Mine held a meeting. Inventory. Bed, metal, bolts proud. Chair, light, dumb. Window, nope. Under the mattress, dust and an uncommitted thread. In the corner, a short baseboard gap. I pried it with my fingernail and found a bent finishing nail like a tooth that had been asked for too much. I kept it. The nail bit my index finger. Good. Proof of me.
Olivia, I thought. Vermouth. If she didn't hear from me by 10:30, she'd call. If she texted and got a convincing response, would she still call? The worst part of being careful is learning how easily careful breaks. I caught myself counting steps. Up the corridor. Turn left. That faint hum, ventilation. Someone else's cell in some other century. Numbers are how you leave breadcrumbs for the version of you that finds the door later. With nothing to write, I fished my pocket for anything, found a tiny bottle of clear nail polish, and smiled like a thief. Along a barely visible seam under the sill, I drew a thin line and wrote 17. 17 steps from the door to the T-junction. If someone ever found this place and wondered, I wanted them to know I'd measured it. He came back with my phone and set it on the chair like a meal. So you don't panic, he said. Calm, as if this were a retreat and I'd forgotten to pack a charger. The screen lit to life. Notifications stacked like a nervous deck of cards. 3 from Liv, 2 from Mom, 1 from a work Slack that would never believe the story. No service. Yet the Wi-Fi glyph flickered full. The network name was a joke without a punchline. Guest. He texted her, said, "Tell her you're fine, then sleep." He didn't watch over my shoulder, which felt worse than if he had. Trust is the most insulting kind of control. I typed, "Heading home now. Don't wait up. Phone dying." Then, vermouth. He smiled with half his mouth. "You know what makes safe words useless?" he asked. "Habit. Most people sprinkle them like salt." He pocketed my device and glided out. The quiet returned with posture. Somewhere above, a door banged open and shut. Footfalls, 2 voices, 1 male, him, 1 younger, breaking around the edges like a teenager's. The younger voice said, "I don't like this." The older one answered, "You don't have to like anything." I wanted it to be Ryan. I didn't want that at all. I tried the doorknob because fairy tales deserve witnesses. It didn't turn. I sat on the cot and counted my own breath to keep it from counting me. At some point, a black lens up in the corner blinked. I lifted the water bottle, unscrewed it, poured a little onto the floor, then slipped the bent nail between lid and lip like a bookmark. God gives you fear, you give yourself friction. Time became a species of animal I'd never met. It sniffed my hands, circled, lay down. I might have slept, because the next thing that woke me was a vibration against my thigh. My phone. Returned. A new message ringed by the blue of myself. Home, bed, all good. See you tomorrow. I hadn't written it. The text preview showed the tiny gray word, edited. He was using iMessage editing to backfill the conversation. I opened the thread. My last 3 scent bubbles were lies that looked like me. You don't know what your face is like until a stranger wears it. I swallowed hard enough to make a noise. The camera blinked again in the corner. I stood, turned my back to it like a guilty moon, and pressed the phone flat to my stomach under my shirt. No service. Wi-Fi captive portal. I opened notes and typed, as if journaling to myself. Ryan, real, not sure, older man control, warehouse or sublevel, 17 steps to T, door, loading bay, Wi-Fi, guest, nail undersill. I copied the text, opened an unrelated app that cached data offline, pasted it into a drafts folder with a title I'd recognize only if I lived. Recipe, vermouth. Dumb? Perfect. Footsteps again. A pause outside the door, a key sounding proud. The older man entered with someone else behind him, a silhouette wearing Ryan's outline. He stepped into the light, and it was him. His eyes had the shocked, bright look of someone who'd miscalculated their own capacity for harm. "Hi, Maya," he said. His voice was thinner, scared. "I'm not here," the older man cut in. 5 minutes, he added to Ryan. Then to me. Sleep. He left the door open just long enough for the idea of open to feel like a joke, and then locked it twice. Ryan stood there like a verdict in the wrong case. "I'm sorry," he said. "There is a particular anger that keeps you safer than fear." It arrived like a good friend who'd sprinted over. I said, "You set me up," and the words didn't tremble. "You researched the gallery, you knew the dead zone, you—" "He's not—" he began, then abandoned the sentence. "Listen, he's not who he says, and I'm not who you think. I didn't know it would be you." His mouth twisted like he'd caught himself telling a coward's truth. "No, I knew it would be someone. I thought I could control it." "You can leave," I said, and the room made a sound that wasn't laughter. "Walk out, call the police, be brave in a way that's not theoretical." His eyes flicked to the camera. "He has pictures," Ryan said quietly, "of me, of other people, and a friend, my sister. He knows where she lives." I thought, swallowed a rock. He finds people. Online. He needed a legitimate handoff. If the first hour looks consensual, fewer questions get asked. He said he'd let me go after this. He says a lot of things. "You brought me to a door. You didn't shove me through it." "I tried to take you somewhere bright," he said, and hated himself for the sentence. "I thought if I kept us public long enough, I could—" He stopped, then started cleaner. "I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm asking you to listen." I blinked once. "You have 3 minutes and a lifetime to make up for." He exhaled, head down like he'd been benched. "He calls himself Mr. Lyle," Ryan said. "Not his name. He's meticulous. He scouts dead zones, tests doors that look official, lines up Wi-Fi with bad security and better bandwidth. He scripts check-in texts, waits to see which friends bite back, flags anyone who knows about safe words. He builds false reassurance and then lives inside it." Ryan's hands shook in careful increments. "He told me I was doing good work, that most first dates end with someone hurting, and at least this way it was tidy. He said I was helping people go where they needed to go." Ryan shut his eyes. I wanted him to sound like a monster. He mostly sounds like customer service. "And now?" I asked. "Now I do what he says, or he ruins 2 lives I can't fix," Ryan said. "But I can bend rules at the edges. The camera is motion-based. If you sit very still for 60 seconds, it sleeps for 5. There's a sensor under the bed frame that pings if weight changes too fast. Slide, don't jump. The door alarm is silent but real." He pointed, tiny, to a square behind the chair. "The outlet cover's loose. If you wedge something under it, the alarm sometimes fails during reset." "Loose like an invitation or loose like a trap?" "Both," he said. The look on his face told me he knew what that meant. Outside, footsteps. Mr. Lyle's hum, unconcerned. Ryan backed toward the door. "He'll move you soon," he whispered. "He cycles rooms. He once told me, 'Stillness leaves fingerprints.'" Ryan's mouth bent into a parody of Lyle's flat tone. "We prefer traffic." "Help me now," I said. "Stay." He shook his head once, the smallest betrayal. "If I try, he takes us both. I'm not brave without a plan," he said. And then I left one. His eyes dipped to my water bottle, the nail under the cap, my note buried in an app pretending to be a recipe.
He'd read me in 15 minutes, and I resented him for it and was secretly grateful. "You're not alone, Maya," he swore. "To you." Then he left. When you are in a story you don't want, every object auditioning for heroism looks suspicious. I felt the nail press into my palm like a vote. I flattened on the cot and breathed until my ribs forgot they existed. 60 seconds. The lens blinked, then blinked slower, then went a little blank. I slid to the floor, the way Ryan had said, the way a thief steals their own body. The outlet plate was exactly like him, almost loyal. I wedged the nail under and felt a soft give, then a tiny static kiss that lifted every hair I own. Somewhere a system adjusted its expectations. I waited. Nothing screamed. Good enough. The lock turned. I slid back into bed, in that weird, slow, fast way that happens in bad dreams. Mr. Lyle entered with the serene air of a man in a hardware store who knows the aisle numbers. He said, "We're going on a walk. Leave your jacket. Phones live with me." He cuffed my wrists, not with metal, but with something that bragged about being frictionless. He didn't gloat, he didn't posture. He wore me like paperwork. We took 17 steps to the T and 2 rights after that. The air curved into colder. Another room, not twin, more like a cousin. No camera obvious, no window. A humming I recognized. Servers. A folding table with the laptop and a phone tree. Cheap androids in a family photo. He gestured to a chair, clipped the restraint to a ring in the floor that had seen some miles, and typed something light as weather. "Don't," I said. The word looked skinny standing next to him. "Security theater is mostly costume," he said without looking up. "You know that. But people love a uniform." He spun the laptop to face me. The screen was a patchwork. My chat with Liv open in one window, my banking app login page captured in a different one, a notepad with an inventory of my mother's maiden name, my first school, my last 3 addresses. He said, "We collect rehearsals, the stuff you show the world on purpose. It turns strangers into puppets." "Who are you?" I asked, which is the dumbest and bravest question in any myth. "Someone who used to like puzzles," he said, as if filing his nails. "Now I like systems that people don't notice. Systems are how you disappear someone without opening a single door." "And Ryan," I asked, "is he your friend or your tool?"
"Aren't we all both?" he said, and for the first time I heard the grind under the calm. He tapped the table. "Here's what happens. For your peace, well, for mine, you'll sleep. I'll drive. You wake up in a place best described as transitional. If you behave, we will call this a misunderstanding and return you to a life that will have learned a lesson. If you do not, we will make choices with your data that share your name more widely than you ever intended." He smiled politely. "Do you understand?" What I understood was simple. He wanted me to be grateful for the shape of a cage. He wanted me to make his job easy. I looked at the phone tree again, the cheap plastic lined up like teeth. One had a tiny sticker, 27. I filed it next to vermouth in my head. He stood, closed the laptop, pocketed the nearest Android and my iPhone, and left with the door clicking a different click, one that sounded like it knew me. The hum of the server filled the room with a purr I wanted to strangle. I waited until footsteps faded. Then I listened for the sound I'd love forever. Another pair coming, faster, breathier, scared. "Maya," Ryan hissed. He took a call. "I have 60 seconds. He held up a key ring that didn't belong to his pockets. "You said you weren't brave without a plan," I said. "I borrowed one," he said, and knelt at the floor ring. "Shift left." The restraint gave an inch. 2. Enough. He looked at me and I looked back, and the room became a promise. "There's a fire door at the end of the corridor," he whispered as he worked. "Alarm is tied to the outlet loop upstream. If the plate is loose there too, it'll stall. I can't go with you. If I run now, he uses my sister like a switch. But there's a woman on night security, Ava.
She hates him more than she loves her paycheck. She parks a blue Civic by the side entrance. If you make it to the loading dock, bang 3 times on the metal with something heavy. She'll hear. She told me she would. Why would she trust you? I asked. She doesn't, he said. She trusts hating him. The cuff clicked free. The door did not. We stared at it together like a riddle that didn't owe us anything. A key slid into the lock from the other side. Ava wasn't what I expected. She was younger and older, fierce and tired, a woman who could bench press my fear and set it down gently. Go. She tossed me a hoodie that smelled like dust and citrus. Camera loop buys us maybe 90 seconds, more if his call gets interesting. Don't run like a hero. Walk like you belong and the floor will forget you. Why help me? I asked, even as my legs obeyed her. She smiled with no teeth. Because I am practicing for the day I help myself. We moved through halls that decided not to be halls, down past pipes that hummed like insects. The fire door wore a push bar and a dare. Ava palmed it. The alarm inhaled and then thought better of exhaling. The loose outlet trick had worked somewhere upstream. We stepped into an air that needed a haircut. The loading dock was a slab of sky stapled to concrete. 3 bangs, Ava said, and vanished back into a story that still had her name in it. I grabbed the rusted length of rebar from a bucket of its friends and hit the dock plate 3 times. The sound was all vowels. The night answered with the sound of a struggling engine, and then a blue Civic shouldered into view, headlights off. The passenger door yawned open. Get in, Ava said, as if offering gum. Ryan, I started, doesn't get to live in your car. Seatbelt. We rolled out without drama. Drama is for people with time. 2 blocks. 4. Rain started again like a rumor. We took a right that took a left that erased itself. Phone? Ava asked.
Dead Wi-Fi prison, I said.
She handed me a cheap Android with a cracked protector. Dial, not text. Don't say my name. Don't say where. Say the word someone who loves you will recognize. Olivia picked up on the first ring, an accident that tasted like a miracle. Hello? Vermouth, I said, and heard her knees hit something soft. Olivia, I'm okay. Not okay, but okay. Call 911. Ask for Detective Morales. No, Detective Chu, if she's on. Tell them I'm with a woman named... I looked at Ava, who shook her head minutely. With a friend. I'll drop a pin when I can. I'm safe for now. Where? Liv asked. I closed my eyes and tried to reverse engineer a map from sound. Warehouse district near the river, I said. Loading bays. A door marked Loading Bay. Does a network called Guest. It's a whole system. I heard my voice becoming airless. He has scripts. He texts back as us. Don't believe me in writing. Believe my voice. Olivia said my name like a new thing. I'm on the phone with 911. Stay on with me. No, I said. Trace this. Call Morales. Get them moving. I'll find Bright. Ava drove without asking me to explain fear. I'll drop you at the urgent care on Harbor. Bright. Cameras. Witnesses who don't ask you to be entertaining. I'll circle. What about you? I asked. Tonight I go to work. Tomorrow, I don't. Her smile was a knife you throw and catch. Promise me you won't go back. I promised, I said, not sure who I was promising. Her, myself, the version of me who'd almost believed in a gallery and a door. We pulled under a canopy where an automatic door tried to remember how to be automatic. Inside, fluorescent honesty. A woman at a desk who could outstare a storm. A guard with shoulders that had decided to be useful. I said the words you say when you want to be believed without making a monument out of it. I need help. I was taken. I am out. Please keep me in the light. The guard hit a switch that made the room feel like a held hand. The woman at the desk called 911 without reaching for permission slips. I sat on a plastic chair that felt like it had comforted better people than me. The first officer to arrive was exactly as tired as I needed him to be. "I'm Morales," he said, showing me a badge that didn't feel like theater. Then, "This is Detective Chu." She looked like someone who'd forgotten to be intimidated at the academy and never remembered. "Start from the last place you're certain," Chu said, pulling a small spiral notebook from thin air. "We'll honor your confusion. It knows things." I told them about Ryan and Mr. Lyle and the trick with the outlets, the camera that slept if you did, the guest network, and the door stamped loading bay. I told them about Ava's promise and the blue Civic with a headlight that wanted to die first. Morales wrote with a pen that sounded like weather. Chu asked questions that confirmed facts without asking my soul to audition. When they asked for my phone, I laughed once and it came out round and wrong. I said, "He has it," with a fleet of burner twins. Morales held up an evidence bag that had appeared in his hand at the perfect time because this was his job. Inside, my phone. "We stopped the sedan 15 minutes ago. The driver tossed this and a handful of cheap androids out the window like he wanted to make a wish. He ran. He wasn't Mr. Lyle." Morales' voice acknowledged that villains rarely volunteer. "A driver who works for a driver," he said. "We've got a plate. We've got a direction. What we needed was the map that lives in your body." Chu slid a portable recorder on the chair beside me. "Say your name and today's date, and say Vermouth into a microphone that's on our side." I did. The word felt like both a key and a bruise. "Can you find Ava? She risked everything." "We'll try," Chu said. "Sometimes good people make themselves hard to catch. We allow that."
They swabbed my hands, photographed my wrists where the frictionless cuffs had tried to erase me, gave me water that tasted like permission. Liv arrived, face wet, arms already around me before her legs made their decision. She smelled like laundry and bravery and the long edge of a bad dream. "You came back," she said. "Then, I'm going to throttle you for that gallery idea when you're not made of glass." "She saved me," I said, and meant Ava, and meant Liv, and meant the version of me that kept a nail and a note and a number for a hallway. The next days curled into each other like sleeping animals. Interviews. A sketch artist who made Mr. Lyle's ordinary face look like a recipe for forgetting. A tech from cybercrimes who looked 14 and was not. Who said, if he ran everything off a local server, there will be prints. Even careful men have habits. They found the building, a decommissioned logistics hub. Emptier than a lie at first glance. Fuller than expected by the time forensics finished making their careful mess. They found the camera loops and the outlet bypass. They found the cheap androids labeled with numbers, 27 among them. They found scripts, home now, battery dying, don't wait up, got stuck talking to a friend. They found a diagram titled confidence intervals that wasn't about statistics so much as how much false reassurance a person needed before their people stopped worrying. They found the word Ava nowhere, which either meant she'd never been there or she'd been excellent. Chu looked pleased about that. They did not find Mr. Lyle. Men like him don't sit still. They did not find Ryan either, not right away. He found me. 3 days after the urgent care, I stood at my kitchen sink pretending to make tea while Liv dialed detectives like she was tuning an instrument. The intercom buzzed, polite as an apology. I froze. Liv looked at me with a face that said no and also said, I trust you. I picked up. It's me, Ryan's voice said, thinner for traveling through wires. I'm on your stoop with my hands empty. I know you hate me. I need you to help me hate myself productively. I thought of the rules we made and the doors we don't open. Go to the cafe on Grant. Sit where we sat. Don't order. If you leave, I call someone who will be faster than guilt.
I hung up and called Morales. They arrived first, of course. Two detectives who looked like they'd been born already knowing how to wear suits. Chu nodded at me, at Liv, at the kettle that had forgotten its job. We won't make you sit in his shadow. You can watch from the window or not at all. I went with, because curiosity has a spine sometimes. Ryan sat at the cafe table with no menu to pretend to read. His face had given up on plausible deniability. He looks like someone who dragged his guilt around by a leash and it asked to be carried. Morales sat across from him. Chu stood just to the side, the air around her on my team. I can give you a name he uses when he thinks no one is listening, Ryan said after the recorder clicked on. Not Lyle, Lionel Keene. Might be real, might be treasure map junk. I can give you 3 addresses he's used to move women briefly so they forget which one mattered. I can give you the name of his hobby. He goes to estate sales for old police scanners and resumes them into his act. I can give you how he got into Maya's phone, spoofed a known network, rolled a captive portal, trapped her iMessage through a Mac Mini that lives in a locked Pelican case. Chu's eyes warmed a degree. I can give you a program, he said. Protection, maybe a deal, best case, a path to not being in cages after you stop building them. But you need to give me your sister's address now so we can keep your fear from being a remote control. He exhaled into his hands. Done, he said, and named a street in a town that sounded like a punctuation mark. Morales nodded once, like a promise had just been notarized. I watched from the sidewalk because I needed architecture and weather to sit between us. Ryan looked up through the glass at one point and saw me the way you spot your own reflection in a window and try not to flinch. He mouthed, I'm sorry, and I nodded, like a parent tells a kid a bedtime story about consequences. He would help. He would hurt. Both things would be true for a while. A week went by where every door sound was a verdict. A bulletin went out to bars and ride shares and the company that owned the decommissioned hub. Tips arrived like pigeons, messy, everywhere. Some were useful. Most were people trying to be good.
Then the call. Ava's voice in Morales' voicemail, flat on purpose. He's coming to clean up Wednesday night. He hates fingerprints on nothing. She left a time in a cropped location, East Loading Bays, Riverside, then hung up because bravery doesn't waste battery. They made a plan that made sense. They didn't tell me because sometimes they love me by leaving me out. I put my phone face down and stared at the ceiling like it owed me money. Liv made pasta the way you make warmth with your hands. We ate in the living room on the floor because furniture felt like a lie. At 11, Morales texted me a single period. At 11:06, another. At 11:11, done. Court isn't like TV unless your life has been very unlucky. Lionel Keene looked smaller than the room wanted a villain to be. He looks like a man you would let hold your place in line. He looked like the thing bad men do best. Forgettable. The prosecutors stacked charges in careful columns. The defense tried to dress him in absence. No prints here, no witness there, no video catching the actual touch. Only the world around the touch cringing. They had Ave, though. She came in wearing her name like a quiet alarm and told the truth with the voice that refused to offer discounts. She talked about cameras and loops and the way guilt makes you learn how electricity rests. She talked about 3 bangs on a dock plate and a driving route she didn't take home because she liked living. She didn't look at him. She didn't look at me. She looked at the judge like they were trading recipes, equal parts honesty, fear, and a pinch of something stubborn. Ryan came to on the stand in a suit that couldn't make him new. He said the words he needed to say with the posture of a person who understands that you can't buy absolution at a store. He wove us a map of the system, the false galleries, the dead zones, the scripts, the cheap phones labeled 27 to 33, the server humming like it had friends. He named the victims he knew about and the ones he suspected,
The ones who'd messaged after their date saying they'd made it home when they hadn't. The ones whose friends shrugged because the internet had taught them to. He cried once. It didn't help him. It helped the truth. I spoke last. A victim impact statement is badly named. It's not impact, it's inventory. What did he take? Time. Teeth I can't unclench. Small ordinary doors that now sound like questions. What did he fail to take? My name? My interest in strangers who tell the truth. The part of me that likes quiet rain without listening for footsteps in it. I won't say his name here, I told the judge. He doesn't get to live in my mouth. I'll say hers, Ava, because she put me back in a car that was pointed at light. I'll say my roommate's, Olivia, because some people are the reason the word home exists. I'll say Ryan, because accountability isn't a synonym for erasure. I'll say the names of the people who didn't get to be here, if their families want them said. And I'll say this, we believe safety is an app. It isn't. It's a practice. It's a map we draw together and keep drawing when someone spills water on it. The judge didn't try to be a hero, and I loved her for it. She ordered numbers that had weight. She made space for restitution. She asked for a plan from the city about dead zones and loading bays, and the way a network named Guest could be a trap with a nice face. She looked at me and said, "The world will pretend you're fine now. You don't have to perform fine for it." I almost thanked her in a way that would have gotten me held in contempt of court. After, in a corridor that smelled like air conditioning and determination, Ava hugged me with a care that made me aware of every vertebra. "I quit," she said, like a bride saying yes. "I'm moving 3 counties over. I'm going to fix vending machines until I figure out what I want to be when I grow up." I said, "You already are it," and we both pretended not to cry for a minute. Ryan came over with Chu flanking him like parentheses. He said, "I don't expect forgiveness, but I wanted to tell you the thing I learned. Being coerced doesn't make you innocent. It makes you responsible to be loud about the coercion so it stops eating other people." I said, "You're late to that party, but not cruelly. Keep talking. Quiet men did this. Loud men should help end it." He nodded and he said, "I will," and I believed him just enough to let him out of my day.
Months happened the way months do, in grocery stores, in inboxes, in the slow rehabilitation of door sounds. I added rituals, texts to live when I was headed home, not because I needed permission, but because I liked the way it felt to be part of a sentence with 2 subjects. I asked cafes to keep a little card by the register with a safety checklist. Share your routes, name a safe word, don't trust texts that could have been written by a ghost. Some rolled their eyes, most said yes. I started carrying a cheap whistle, not because I thought it would solve anything, but because noise is a kind of vote. One afternoon in late spring, I was in line behind a college kid scrolling a dating app with the bland confidence of people who have not yet been haunted by their own skulls. She showed her friend a profile that looked like a softer version of Ryan and said, "He seems normal." The friend said, "Let me run his pics through a reverse image search." People lie. I smiled into my coffee like a conspirator. Safety is contagious. Paranoia is too. We're all playing with matches. It matters what we light. I still go on dates. The internet is a doorway. It didn't stop being one just because a man with clean hands tried to make it a mouth. I meet in daylight. I send a location. I use removed sometimes, and sometimes Clementine, and sometimes I say nothing because nothing can't be edited. Once a man said, "You're cautious," the way you might say, "You're tall." I said, "I like living." He said, "Me too." And we ordered fries that belonged to both of us. On the anniversary, Liv and I walked past the old hub with coffees and a bouquet we didn't know what to do with. The door still said loading bay. The light still didn't love its job. The guest network was gone. In its place, a stronger signal with a name that made me laugh. No shortcuts.
We left the bouquet in a coffee can with A taped on it and wrote a note that said, "If you need help, bang 3 times. Someone is listening." It felt naive and necessary. We walked home the long way, which didn't feel long anymore. Epilogue on Voices. Sometimes reporters email me and want me to say the line that fits in a clip. "What did you learn?" they ask, hungry for a moral that photographs well. I tell them the thing I wish didn't still feel radical. Believe people when the story is small. Believe the "home now" text that lands wrong. Believe the friend who says a date was fine with the voice like a closed window. Believe your own ribcage when it takes a breath like it's hiding. They ask about Mr. Lau's method, and I can hear the appetite in it, the way humans like to collect monsters, the way children collect stickers. I say he used the systems we hand strangers every day, our metadata, our rhythms, our little lies. I say he was not clever, he was consistent. Consistency is a terrifying kind of power. So is community. They ask what saved me. I want to say Ava. I want to say Liv. I want to say Ryan's late courage. But the truest answer is stupid and true. A bent nail, a note in a notes app disguised as a recipe. A room that did not love me, and a brain that refused to be quiet. The internet taught me to leave myself breadcrumbs. I followed them. When I can't sleep, I open my phone and type a fake ingredient list. Vermouth, 2 ounces. Courage, 1 breath. Door, push bar. Alarm, silent. I don't save it. I just like the way it looks, ordinary and loud at the same time. Some nights, the intercom still buzzes once, polite as an error. I don't pick up. I text Liv a dumb meme. She texts back a photo of our porch light. The internet is still a doorway. I still open it. I still put my foot out first and check the floor. Some days I step through. Some days I wait. Both are brave. If you're reading this because you clicked on a title that sounded like a warning and a dare, we matched online, but then I vanished, I'm glad you came. I didn't vanish. I learned how to stand very still until the camera forgot about me, and then I moved. I learned how to ask for help without auditioning for it. I learned the difference between a room that holds you and a person who does.
There isn't a last line. That's the point. Every time I get home and brush my teeth and put my phone face down and sleep without practicing the sound of a door, I'm writing one. When I wake up, I write another. I make tea. I text from youth now and then just to hear how it bounces in our little chat. It sounds like a password and a promise. And when someone new from the internet says coffee, public place, your pick, I say yes. I say I like the table by the window. I say I'm bringing a friend and mean it. The day after the verdict, the city felt like it had exhaled through its teeth. You could almost hear the pressure leave the blocks around the old logistics hub. I tried to live in the quiet the way you try on a coat that might belong to you. Olivia made pancakes like a superstition. We ate them sitting on the counter because chairs felt too ceremonial. At 10:13 a.m., my phone pinged with a notification I didn't know I'd kept. Guest network in range. It shouldn't have been. I wasn't anywhere near the river. I stared at the screen until a second alert joined it. New nearby network. Guest _2G. Liv, I said, and my voice learned a new register. Low, steady, the tone people use when telling you there's a spider and not to look. She crossed the kitchen with her phone already unlocking its detective apps. It's a spoof, she said, and then, because we had earned our paranoia, or it isn't. I opened my window and leaned out like my curiosity had a leash on my head. 2 vans were parked across the street. Contractor white, magnetic logos half peeled, ladders riding roof racks like combs.
A guy in a high-vis vest stood by the rear of the nearer van with a laptop balanced on a plastic crate. He looked like every tech who's ever apologized to a modem. He glanced up, reflex quick, then back to the screen with the calm of a person who'd practiced doing nothing of consequence in public. "Call Morales," I said. Olivia was already 2 steps ahead. I texted Chu a photo. Guest is following. 2 vans. Ladders. Windows up. She sent back a dot. Then, "Sit tight. We're circling." Sitting tight is a skill I cannot recommend learning. I paced the length of our living room 6 times and practiced being air. Olivia went downstairs under the pretense of checking the mail and came back with a picture snapped through the crack of the lobby door, a close-up of the laptop screen. The resolution was bad, but I recognized the interface, someone's custom dashboard for captive portals. The SSIDs listed down the side like a list of used aliases. Guest Wi-Fi, Linksys, Coffee Shop Free, Harbor 2.0. At the top, a tag. Admin N. "Not him," Liv said. "Different hand." I said, "Partner." The word tasted old. Chu's number rang. "We're 5 minutes out," she said. "Do not engage. If you can move into a crowd, do it. We'll pinch from both ends." "Copy," I said, and then the intercom buzzed, polite as bad weather. I went to the panel and pressed the talk button with 2 fingers like it might bite. A woman's voice, flat on purpose. "Package for Maya." "We hadn't ordered anything," I said. "Leave it. Needs a signature," the woman replied with her patience soft as eraser dust. The vans outside hummed like they were bored of themselves. "I bring it up," I said, to keep her in the camera's eye, to keep her voice logged. Olivia mouthed no, then nodded because sometimes consent is a tactic. I stood back as the elevator did its sighing trick and the footsteps approached, measured and ordinary. The knock was 3 taps, polite. I opened on the chain. She wore a courier's jacket that had no other shoulders. Dark hair in a practical bun. Dark eyes that scanned the hallway the way people read instructions. The box she held was shoebox-sized and bland. "Signature," she said. I studied her face the way you study a road you might have to drive at night. The name tape over her pocket read Nora. "I don't sign for things I didn't ask for," I said. "You asked," she said, and tilted the box just enough for me to see the label. Ava S. Cinder. The return address was one of those postal shops where nobody asks questions because the whole point is not to. The chain slid back without my permission. I hated that. I opened the door and kept it where a knee would help. "Leave it," I said. She set it at my feet with a delicacy I didn't like, nodded once and started to turn. I glanced down at the parcel because curiosity is a reckless friend. The top seam had already been slit and resealed. Of course it had. Footsteps from the stairwell, not law enforcement footsteps, the kind of approach that tries to be light and fails. I didn't look away from Nora's hands. "You forgot your pen," I said. She smiled precise, as if I'd made a joke she appreciated grammatically. "I'll live," she said, and began to walk away just as 2 figures in high-vis vests materialized from the lobby, a pair from the vans, playing at contractors. The one on the left turned his face slightly, and I saw the thin white scar along his jaw, the kind you pick up learning not to look back. My body did the math. This wasn't a delivery. This was a noise. "Live," I said without turning my head. "Now." She hit the building alarm we had wired after the trial, the one that made every smoke detector in every unit throw a tantrum, the one that taught neighbors our names in under a minute. The hallway turned into a siren you could breathe. Nora looked annoyed in a way that didn't involve surprise. The contractors glanced at each other. One reached for his waistband and left the motion half-born when he realized our stairwell camera had a very large blinking red light. The elevated doors parted like good theater. Morales stepped out first, jacket open, badge and incidental necklace, Chu at his shoulder, 2 uniforms behind them making the hallway feel smaller in the right ways. "Morning," Morales said, with the cheerful menace of someone who brought friends. The contractors froze into a tableau. We are innocent men who have wandered into a loud building holding laptops and nothing else. Nora inclined her head. "Officer," she said, impressively bored. "Detective," Chu corrected, because the difference mattered. "Drop the box." "It's not mine," Nora said, but slid it back to me with her foot as if it might bite her. Chu's eyes did that narrowing thing I'd seen her do when a suspect tried to lie and made it go in the wrong direction. "The vans are hot," a uniform called from outside through his shoulder mic. "Signal booster, mesh routers, one portable server, one very ugly bag of phones." Olivia's fingers found my sleeve and squeezed. "That means we can go back to chairs after this," she whispered, as if chair privilege had to be earned. Nora didn't run. She was smarter than TV. "Search warrant?" she asked. "Plain view. Exigent circumstances," Morales said, friendly as soup. "And your name?" Chu asked, so soft it felt like kindness. Her hand hovered near the box. "Nora Hale," she said, and I filed it next to the admin tag on the screen. "You've got it wrong. I'm a consultant, freelance. I fix things that break. You think you're the only people who hate dead zones? Half the cafes in this city paid me in muffins to make their Wi-Fi behave." "And the other half paid you to make it misbehave?" Chu asked. Nora met her eyes. She said, "People want what they want. Men like your friend want their toys to work. I sell batteries. I don't
Put them in.
"You're going to sit with us," Morales said. "We're going to talk about your inventory and your clients and your favorite estate sale tables." "Lionel is in jail," Nora said, like she was tired of pronouns. "Why are you still nervous?" "Because networks don't go to jail," I said, and she looked at me with interest, like I'd said something fun at a party. Morales nodded to the uniforms. The contractors were cuffed without ceremony. Nora put out her wrists as if offering a dance no one was brave enough to accept. As they turned her toward the elevator, she glanced down at the box by my toes. "You should open that," she said. "If you don't, the curiosity will eat something you need later." We opened it at the kitchen table with Chu's gloved hands and Morales' pen doing careful work. Inside, a hoodie I recognized, the citrus and dust one Ava had tossed me. On top, a note written in tidy block letters. "Move today. Blue Civic too loud. Going quiet. A." Under the hoodie, a Ziploc with a key, a flash drive, and a photocopy of a driver's license. Ava's, with her last name fully spelled out. Serrano. Olivia breathes out the way people do when someone they've never met becomes a person instead of a symbol. "She trusts us," Liv said. It landed like a responsibility. Chu slotted the flash drive into a right-blocked reader and watched folder names populate like small confessions. Portal, configs, SSID maps, scan logs, phones 27 through 37. She clicked the last one open. Inside were text files, exports of sent messages and timestamps. He kept records, Chu said, a grim kind of gratitude. Of course he did. Men like him don't know how not to keep score. Morales tapped the Portal Configs folder. "This gets us to Nora's client list," he said. "She's going to pretend she sold batteries to the Void, but Voids don't sign POs. People with names do." "And the key?" I asked. Chu held it up to the light. "Locker key," she said. "Bus station or gym. Blue tag. Numbers scratched off to keep us honest." Olivia pushed the hoodie toward me. "Take it," she said. "Some things you keep because the story demands souvenirs." "I don't want to be a museum," I said. "You want to be warm," she countered. "Put it on." I did. It fit like a small permission. By late afternoon, Morales texted a photo of a bus station locker door sprung wide like a joke finally told. Inside, a second flash drive, a burner phone, and a crumpled paper bag with no shortcuts printed on it in black. The kind from a sandwich shop that used to live near the hub and had turned its motto into a citywide inside joke. In the phone, numbers that lined up with Nora's books,
payments from men whose day jobs looked reputable enough to make you sick. In the drive, footage from cameras that weren't supposed to be recording, faces blurred by the bad luck of resolution, but movements clear as signatures. Ava had been collecting her exit for months. She didn't call. I didn't expect her to. Some people save you and then save themselves, and the exchange rate is what it is. The vans outside were towed with all the ceremony of a spoiled wedding. Our neighbors peeked through the hall like opera patrons. The city went dark and stayed ordinary. Sirens in the distance that belonged to other nights. At 9 p.m., my phone vibrated with a message that used my name like it owned a deed. Maya, I'm outside. Ryan. Olivia stood, ready to bodyguard with her entire body. No, she said, logistics and love in the syllable. I can meet him downstairs, in the lobby, under the camera that yells.
Chu texted at the exact second I reached for the knob. We're already with him. The image that followed was taken from the lobby camera. A still of Ryan sitting on the radiator ledge with his hands open and up, as if warming them on an invisible fire. Morales stood beside him, listening. Chu's caption, he brought a map. I exhaled and my knees remembered what they were for. He's cooperating, I said, stupidly obvious. He's late, Olivia said, and then softened. Late is not never. They came up 10 minutes later with the map rolled in a rubber band. Ryan's eyes couldn't decide where to land. Nora wasn't just a freelancer, he said without prompting. She built the skeleton. He just learned how to hang meat on it. She recruited him at a ham radio swap in a high school gym, fell in love with his obsession, not him. She liked puzzles too. She brought a package today, I said. From Ava. She looked at my door like it was a diagram. She's not going to stop being clever, Ryan said. But at least she's in a place where clever gets you fewer snacks. Chu unrolled the map on our table. It was a diagram of dead zones, a grade overlay on our part of the city with small hand-drawn skulls where cell service hiccuped. In the margin, a shopping list. Pelican case, UPS, 2 APs, 10X Sims, cable ties. At the bottom, in a different handwriting I recognized from the box note, if you're reading this, he didn't. A. Bless her, Olivia murmured, like a prayer. Morales took the map. This gives us predictability. Predictability gives us prevention, he said. He looked at Ryan. And you? I know. I don't get to feel redeemed by pointing at a map. He shoved his hands in his jacket pockets like he was afraid they'd do something stupid if left unsupervised. I'm just trying to be useful. Then be useful by disappearing as a protagonist, Chu said, not unkindly. You can be a source. You don't have to be a scene. He nodded. I can try that. When they left, Olivia and I did the thing we hadn't done since the first week. We stood on the balcony and looked at our block like it was a friend's face. Windows glowed. A dog barked at a mailman who was off duty and still dangerous. The street light at the corner flickered once and then chose to stay on. Do you think it's over? Liv asked. I don't, I said. I think it's quieter. That's different. We went inside and I made tea because I wanted to use heat for something gentle. My phone lit up with a number I didn't know, and for a second, my heart tried to hide behind my ribs. It was a journalist, of course, asking if I'd comment on the arrest of the alleged accomplice known as NH. I said no and yes. No to the soundbite, yes to emailing the city council about the dead zones with the map attached. I slept that night. Not well. Sleep has to be trained like a dog, but I slept. In the morning, a postcard was tucked under our door. Plain. No return address.
The picture on the front was a cartoon fox holding a socket wrench. On the back, a sentence in block letters. I'm gone. Learn to be gone too. A. Olivia tacked it to the fridge with a magnet that said, "Good job doing your best." We stood there in our socks and admired the banal bravery of it.
A month later, I sat on a panel at a library because I am the sort of idiot who says yes when asked to fold my fear into something shareable. The panel was called Safety, Systems, and Saying No, which sounded like a class I'd have skipped in college and now would audit twice. The room was full of girls who looked like they'd invent abs and women who carried tote bags like shields. A man in the back looked like a red flag and turned out to be a reporter who wrote kindly about the part where I said I did not want to spend the rest of my life collecting monsters. After, a college kid with nail polish the color of victory came up and said, "I use a safe word, but I don't know how to make it smart." I told her what we'd learned. Choose a word you never say by accident. Change it often. Write it somewhere a friend will look if they stop hearing your jokes. I told her about vermouth and clementine, and how sometimes the smartest thing is a phone call in a bathroom where the hand dryer is too loud. On my way out, a woman stopped me near the returns desk and touched my sleeve like you touch a banister when stairs surprise you. "I was almost someone's script," she said. "I read your story and I recognized the words he was typing for me. I didn't go. I owe you coffee." "You don't," I said. "You owe yourself loud instincts." She laughed, and the laugh sounded like a pedestrian signal turning green. I walked home the long way. I passed the sandwich shop with the no shortcuts bags and bought one just to keep the ritual fed. I texted Olivia, picking up dinner, door in 20, vermouth. She sent a gif of a fox with a socket wrench, and I laughed on the street like a person who had convinced her lungs to be citizens again. The day I decided it was time to try a date, daylight was doing its best. The man's name was Jonah. He had no quotes in his bio, which is a start, and his pictures looked like they'd been taken by friends who liked him instead of by friends who wanted him to look like someone else. We met at noon at the cafe on Grant, where a terrible chapter had started and a better one had found its middle. I arrived early because Control likes to buy the first round. He walked in and did the thing, hands visible, smile small, "Hi, I'm Jonah," like he was saying it to the room at large. We ordered drinks and did the gentle questions. He asked, "Do you prefer window seats or aisles?" And I liked that he was admitting travel. I liked more that he didn't say plane. When I raised safety, he didn't talk about jujitsu or his sister like a certificate. He said, "I text my friend when I get where I'm going because my friend worries, and I like giving her less to do." "Me too," I said, and we smiled in the same language. Midway through a story about his nephew's science fair, baking soda volcanoes never guy, my phone buzzed with a network notification. One new SSID in range, no shortcuts public. I blinked, then looked at the counter. The cafe owner was fiddling with the router, tongue between his teeth like a kid concentrating. He caught my eye and lifted a thumb. Jonah followed my gaze. "Good name," he said. "The best," I said.
We took a walk after because human beings are ambulatory animals. The sky did that dramatic cloud thing painters like. He asked if I'd ever been to the river at dawn. I told him yes and no, that I'd been near it at too many wrong hours and was currently rehabbing its image. He nodded like a person who knows what rehab feels like. We stopped by a bulletin board with flyers for dog walking and improv classes, and a new app that promises to locate your keys and your fear. Someone had posted a small card with 3 bangs drawn on a dock plate and a sentence under it. "If you need help, make noise. Some of us are listening." "I like this city," Jonah said. "Me too," I said, surprised to hear it out loud and not hate myself for being corny. He checked his watch and said, "I've got to go be useful somewhere else. Walk you back?" "I'll text my roommate and take the long way," I said. I like the long way. He nodded, as if I'd passed a test he hoped I'd grade generously. We traded numbers not like a contract, but like a suggestion. He left.
I sent Olivia a pin and felt the habitual relief of being co-authored. On the last block before home, a package waited on the stoop, innocuous in the way of small threats. I almost laughed. No courier in sight, no vans, no polite intercom, just a brown box with my name. I carried it upstairs with a measured heart and opened it on the kitchen table with the butter knife, ready for snakes, confetti, nothing. Inside, a small pelican case, bright orange, foam cut to cradle a portable router and a printed cardstock instructions sheet. The case smelled like plastic and permission. On top, a sticker with the fox and the wrench and a line in tidy block letters. Home kit, for when the internet tries to be a door you don't want. A. I laughed until I almost cried, and then I cried because laughter can only do so much spot welding before the structure needs a second tool. Olivia came in, took the card, read it, and said, "She's a menace." "She's a saint," I said. "She's both," Olive said, which is the only kind of saint that gets anything done. We installed the router by the window with the quick stubbornness of people who have learned to read manuals for fun. The No Shortcuts public SSID appeared on my phone, and I watched the bars climb like a tiny courage. That night, I dreamed a head-empty dream about a beach with no cell service. I woke to the sound of our building settling, a mundane symphony I'd once mistaken for omens. I texted Olivia vermouth, just to hear it thud into our thread. She texted back a heart and a frying pan and the words, "Kitchen's open," and I went there because I could.